Well, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Tom Schlueter with today's Tom's Take. I want to start off by reading a passage that actually came up in my daily Bible readings a couple of weeks ago in 2 Samuel, but then came up again as I've been reading through the Chronicles. It came up again today. 2 Samuel 11, 1 through 3. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace, and from the roof he saw a woman bathing. And we know the rest of the story. The key phrase there, it was a time of war, and David stayed home. It says the same thing in the Chronicles. It was a time of war, and David stayed home. This Sunday, I gave an illustration from something that happened to me 49 years ago when my wife Kay and I were serving as ministry leaders with a Christian ministry in the national parks. We were out in the Grand Tetons for a whole summer. Beautiful. What a beautiful place to minister. I was a rookie back then. My sermons were probably 10 minutes long. They were more of an exhortation or a meditation than rather preaching really strong and mighty, maybe like hopefully I do today. But it still was powerful. I remember a storm came through one weekend prior to Sunday morning, and the large lodgepole pines that sometimes would go 70, 80, 90 feet tall, and just beautiful pines. With the strong winds, many of them, just like dominoes, had fallen to the ground. Fortunately, none of us were hurt or property damaged. But I was amazed at these poles, these huge pine trees could fall so easily in that strong wind, until I saw their root system, which only went about 6 to 8 feet deep. We need to be firmly rooted. Or let's put it in the context of David, when we are at war, we need to go to war. We don't need to stay home. Let me read the passage from the Passion Translation that I used in Sunday's message regarding this. It's Colossians 2, starting with verse 6. In the same way you received Jesus, our Lord and Messiah, by faith, continue your journey of faith, progressing further into your union with Him. Your spiritual roots go deeply into His life. Listen to that. They go deeply into His life as you are continually infused with strength, encouraged in every way. For you are established in the faith you have absorbed and enriched by your devotion to Him. Now, if that's not defining you, you have one exhortation from me. Go deep into Jesus. We are at war, and it is time to go deep into Him and allow His Spirit and His life, His truth, be completely absorbed into your body. We need that devotional and strong, passionate faith in this hour as no other time, because it is time to go to war. Now let me continue with Colossians 2, because the warning comes out. Beware that no one distracts you or intimidates you, like someone bathing on the top of another roof, in their attempt to lead you away from Christ's fullness by pretending to be full of wisdom when they are filled with endless arguments of human logic. For they operate with humanistic and clouded judgments based on the mindset of the world system, and not the anointed truths of the Anointed One. For He is the complete fullness of deity living in human form, and our own completeness is now found in Him. Don't be distracted. It's time to war. You shouldn't be staying home, David. You should be out there with the warriors. In this moment when he decided not to go to war, he was distracted. How many times are we distracted? How many times do we hear the endless and futile human logic and reasoning of the things around us? How many times do we hear the lies and the distortions that are coming across all the wavelengths of life? We are hearing them constantly. And not just dealing with the political system that we're in right now, which is at its highlight if you look at it, because everything that is being spewed against the church, against righteousness, against holiness, against where we are as we are intended to be a godly nation, and evil is being spewed against us. Do not, in this season, decide not to go to war. I don't want to fight this battle. I'm not into this. Please listen to my friend Dutch Sheets this morning on Give Him 15. He speaks very highly of this, very strongly of this. How especially the church has pulled back in times of war and said, hey, we just don't want to get involved with politics. We don't want to get involved with that war. Let somebody else fight that. Well, when we let somebody else fight that, your distraction leads to your downfall, but it also leaves a hole in the wall that allows the enemy to come in and the enemy to take what really belonged to us. And that's what eventually happens with Rabbah. Because we know what happens with David and Bathsheba and Uriah. But eventually Joab, the army, says, look, David, if you don't come out here and show your authority, then I'm going to take credit for this win. I'm going to put the crown of the king on my head. Finally, David wakes up and goes and receives the crown. But that should never have happened. It should never have happened. Last night as we were doing ecclesia, war room prayers from my office right where I'm sitting, the Lord started showing us something really interesting. One of my friends, his name is Glenn, he was actually on the call and not in the room with us, and he saw me taking care or stewarding a great net that is stretched out over the state of Texas. And he thanked me and encouraged me and again exhorted me to make sure that it was secure. Well, it's going to be secure not only by my works, but also by the work of everyone around the state as we secure the knots on our net. Actually, what I saw in the Spirit as he was speaking was not like just a fishing net. I'm actually seeing that. I was seeing a net-like dome over the entire state of Texas, much like the Iron Dome defense system over Israel. But every portion of that net has to be held secure. Nobody can say, I don't want to get involved. Nobody can say, well, that's not my fight. Nobody can say, well, they'll take care of it. I think I've got some other things to do. And we are distracted by what our eyes see or what our ears are hearing from a very messed up world out there, and we are allowing that to come into our lives. Remember that when you refuse to go to war, then the distractions will take you away from that, and there will be a gap. On our prayer call this morning, Darla mentioned a breach. There will be a gap. There will be a breach in the wall. And when there's a breach, where there's a gap, I'll guarantee you, the enemy will find a way in. Well, we have allowed the enemy too many access points in our nation. But I decree today from the state of Texas, we secure the net. And I encourage you all across the state, all the intercessors, all the leaders of the state, secure the net. Secure your point of the net. Get out to war. If you're a pastor and you're not telling your people to get out there and to vote righteously based on biblical values, you're letting a major gap in the wall, a major gap in this net, and the enemy will flood in, and you will pay the price for that. Don't let that happen. Don't let what happened to David happen to you. Don't let what the writer Paul writes to the Colossians happen to you. You are firmly rooted in Jesus. Go down deep in him. But you were firmly rooted. Why? In order to withstand the winds of war. You weren't firmly rooted just to have a secure spot on your pew or in your pulpit. It's time for war. It's time to secure the net. It's time. Let's get this thing done. I close with this. As I saw that net extended over Texas, I saw it being extended outward, the surrounding states and into the nation. And I believe there are similar nets over all the other states. And there is a combining, a netting together, not in old traditional networks, but a netting together of the ecclesia in this hour, where all of our breach points, all of our gaps are being filled in and secured by those who are deeply rooted in Jesus Christ. Secure the net and go to war. Blessings to all of you today. Let's get this thing done. I'll be with you again tomorrow.